Hey everybody, so good to see you. Welcome to the Summer Sunday Stream right here on the YouTube channel is probably where you're watching, or you're watching on the IGTV, so welcome here as well. You're welcome everywhere you go.
Hey, so I'm not Sam. Again, my name's Michael. I'm the high school director here at Orion campus.
Not how it's pronounced.
To everyone else in the world, it is.
Also, probably accurate. It's because of Orion's belt.
That's right.
Are you wearing a belt?
I am not.
Neither am I.
Probably should.
Are you? Tell us about it if you are, because we care. We don't care about that. My name is Sam. I am our middle school director here at the Orion campus, and it's a great day today.
We hope so.
Now, as people are jumping on, joining right now live, we figured we'd fill you in on just a window into our lives because we missed you and we want to have a window into your lives. So we figured you guys probably want the same thing. So we're giving you the window into our lives because we miss you a ton. We did see some of you at church last weekend. We might see some of you today. We don't know. Maybe you're there or maybe you're at home watching this.
Right.
All right. So, Michael.
Yes.
Give us just a highlight, just a regular old highlight from the last few days.
Actually, last Sunday, I got to help run video at the auditorium for the first time. That's not what my highlight was. My highlight was that the person bossing us around and leading us the whole time was Ryan Hammond, one of our now former students who graduated this year. Like, seriously, you'd have thought he owned this place the way he led everybody through that. So, great job, Ryan.
Yes, it was awesome. I also helped run camera last weekend, and it was fun. However, not my highlight. My highlight was watching and listening to Hamilton all day, every day. That's it. And I am not throwing away my shot.
Hey yo, I'm just like my country. I'm young, scrappy, and hungry, and I'm not throwing away my
All right, but those are not the only highlights that you need to hear about today. We also have a special member of our team, a special treat for you today that you haven't seen in a while if you've just been watching our Sunday streams. So, without further ado, give it up and let's get ready to hear the highlight from Kelsey. Hey! So, Kelsey, what was your highlight from the last few days?
Well, obviously, you guys haven't seen me around a lot lately because I've been at home with my kids. So this last week was the first week I got to come back into the office, which was awesome. Just be able to have time to work, see everybody. And it was also the first time, obviously, having church. So I was there for both my kids. So that was kind of a highlight, being able to get out and see people.
For sure. Yeah.
So
that's awesome. We want to know what your guys' highlights are too, so put it in the comments or in the live chat, wherever you're watching. But today we want to dive right into what our story is, because like our themes on all of our streams, it's important, but we're going to be looking at a story from Scripture that's maybe different than a way that you've ever looked at it before.
And this story is called The Prodigal Son. Well, actually, it's got lots of names, but The Prodigal Son is what it's mostly known for. Just a reminder of what we're about here at Edge and Breakaway. We are focused on three things, right? That's truth, identity, and community. And we all know that community is really tough to do right now, and we're all kind of missing that. But we are still about that, which is why we encourage you to jump into our Zoom chats or whatever our events may be when we have them. But here in our streams, we're talking about truth and we're talking about identity. And so we're going to look at this story and see what truths we can learn from it that can affect who we are and how we live our lives.
So here's what it says. Jesus continued, "There was a man who had 2 sons. The younger one said to his father, 'Father, give me my share of the entire estate.' So he divided his property between them."
This may not seem as shocking to you as it actually is, but it's the equivalent of him going to his dad and saying, "Hey dad, I wish you were dead. Because at the end of your life, you owe me money because it's going to be my inheritance. So I want that now." And by the way, back then, cultures were a little different than they are here, and they were very communal. So it wasn't just you and your family, it was the entire community together. Everybody saw their responsibility for each other. So for him to say that to his dad, everybody would have known the shame he was bringing on his dad and saying, "Hey, I know what you've taught me. I know how I'm supposed to be. I know what life's supposed to be like, but guess what? I don't really care. Give me everything that's mine. I'm going to go do what I want."
So continuing. Not long after that, the younger son got together all he had, set off for a distant country, and squandered his wealth in wild living. After he had spent everything, there was a severe famine in that whole country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to a citizen of that country, who sent him to his fields to feed pigs. He longed to fill his stomach with the pods that the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything. When he came to his senses, he said, "How many of my father's hired servants have food to spare, and here I am starving to death? I will set out and go back to my father and say to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me one of your hired servants.' So he got up and went to his father. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son and threw his arms around him and kissed him."
So one thing that comes to mind when I hear this story is when I was 5 years old. This is probably one of the most traumatic experiences of my life. And I was riding my bike down our sidewalk. You can only go to the end of the road, right? Like you're like, "Hey, all right, Sammy, you can only go to the end of the road." And I'm like, "All right, Dad, you got it." And my dad was outside mowing the lawn. I ride down, going down the sidewalk. I see a stump ahead on the side of underneath a tree next to the sidewalk. And I see it, I get closer and closer, and I'm like, okay, there's a stump, okay, cool. And I get really close, and I'm like, that is not a stump. That is a crow with a broken wing, and it is struggling seriously. I dropped my bike, and I booked it home. And so I'm probably I'm not that far away, right? I can only go to the end of the street. So I'm probably 4 houses away. But it felt like I was a long way off. I was going nuts in my head. I dropped my bike, run home. I see my dad. I get up to him and I give him this hug. But I'm in the middle of this. It's this feeling of, I think, probably hopelessness or helplessness that this son is feeling too, where he's wondering, right? He's prepared this speech that he has to give to his dad to say, "Man, I'm so sorry. I was so wrong. Will you take me back just as a servant? I'll be your servant. You don't even need to look at me as your son." But the father has such a different outlook, such a different intention, which I love about the story. But I bet that there's times in all of our lives that we felt maybe that feeling of helplessness or hopelessness, not knowing what the future would hold. And in that story, just for a fun little tip, my dad gave me a hug, then went inside, then called animal control, and animal control came and took care of the bird. And I am afraid of birds now forever. So,
anyways, back to the story. The son said to him, "Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son." But the father said to his servants, "Quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found." So they began to celebrate. Meanwhile, the older son was in the field. When he came near the house, he heard music and dancing. So he called one of the servants and asked him what was going on. "Your brother has come," he replied, "and your father has killed the fattened calf because he has him back safe and sound." The older brother became angry and refused to go in. So his father went out and pleaded with him. But he answered his father, "Look, all these years I've been slaving for you and never disobeyed your orders. Yet you never gave me even a young goat so I could celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours who has squandered your property with prostitutes comes home, you kill the fattened calf for him." "My son," the father said, "you are always with me and everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and be glad because this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found."
A lot of the times when we hear this story, the questions that is asked, whether it's at church or at home, by me, by Michael, by you, by a small group leader or a parent, is this question. It's which brother, which son do you identify with?
Right? Are you the son who went away, squandered everything, and had to come back to his father helpless, asking him to become a slave for him, but then was redeemed and celebrated while he returned? Or are you the older brother who had never left home, did everything the right way, and then gets angry and upset because he hasn't been celebrated for all the stuff that he has done?
I actually feel like I have quite a few times in my life where I have resonated with both of those. There's a lot of times that when I choose my own way or I seek my own needs first above everyone else's, I feel more like the son who ran away, right? The prodigal son. So when I choose my own way or I choose to put my own rights above everyone else no matter what, in that moment I am placing myself first and ignoring everyone else and thinking only about right now instead of thinking about others. But on the flip side, if I'm not careful, I can also be like the older brother and I can be judgmental of other people who are choosing their own way too. So there's this balance that's needed, and neither of those brothers do it well at any point in this story. And what's interesting is they both can be very selfish if they're the ones that are choosing their own way above everyone else, or if they're being equally judgmental towards the brother or the person who is choosing their own way, right?
So the story is about the sons, right? It's about the two brothers, and particularly about the son who demanded his inheritance and squandered and wasted everything and then came back, right? And so that's why this story is often referred to as the prodigal son. But I do remember, if you guys can remember, before quarantine, so we're talking
BC, before COVID.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was like, it definitely starts with a Q, but we will accept because it
For
sound.
COVID.
But we had house groups, and we had them for Breakaway and Edge, and we actually looked at this story. And I remember talking with you because we both had students who presented and talked about this idea, this story, in a way that we had never really considered before. And they said, what if it's not about the sons as much as it's about the father? And even more so beyond that, because we have a friend, Cody Wilson, who has said this from stage before, where he would say, it should be called the good father story. Yeah. But these students kind of took it the extra step, and they said, it's about the father, but it's also about how we should be like the father to the people in our lives.
Yeah, see, the thing the father does that the sons don't is he moves to who they are. Like, this is the identity piece coming out. Wow. They live out their way. They are choosing their way, and they are ignoring who they are, right, and who they're supposed to be. And they're so focused on the action piece, whereas the father is more focused on their identity. Like, he doesn't speak to their actions. Yeah. He speaks to their heart. Wow. And I think for me, like, that's probably one of the things the world needs right now. Is for us to not spend so much time focusing on just my individual self or the failures and faults in someone else's individual self, and more speak to like who we are instead of focusing on their actions as much, because that's the thing he uses to bring them back together. It's not their action piece. It starts with who they are. Wow.
The story is important because Jesus is sharing this story with his disciples. And it's important to know that God is always there welcoming us with open arms. And so if we are planning to be like God and like the Father in this story, we should always be welcoming everybody with open arms around us too.
Yeah. So that's our challenge for today. I mean, we are always teaching that we need to look and try to be like Jesus at all times. But right now, I think our challenge is for us to think about being like the Father in this story.
So what does that look like for you this week? What does it look like? What do we see from the Father in this story that translates to our lives, right? So the Father, he was kind, he was loving, he was encouraging, he was welcoming, he was eager, right? He was eager to meet someone who needed to be met. And he had wisdom and perspective. And so what would it look like for us? What would it look like for you to just be one of these things this week to somebody in your life?
And that's all we have for this week. Thank you guys so much for watching. We hope you guys were all encouraged, and we will see you next week.
Boom.
Bye.
Fine.
Niner, 40. Oh, it's minor, 49er.
He's fired.
Great.
Just kidding. Okay. Sam wrote this at 3 a.m.
We'll be back. Soon you'll see. There's a lot of things wrong with me.
It's from the musical Chicago, if you didn't know.
What? You're doing so good.
We just talked about killing a bird, and now we're talking about killing cats.
Yeah, the point is, don't pee on your friends. So what does that look like for you this week?